The trouble began on a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind of day where nothing unusual should have happened. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft glow over the neighborhood, and the sprinklers along the street were just finishing their cycles. The air smelled like dew and fertilizer, a comforting reminder that the lawns of Green Willow Estates, my lawn included, were the pride of the community. Mine, in particular, had always been a point of admiration. People walking their dogs slowed down to admire the even cut and vibrant color, and more than once, neighbors had asked for the name of my landscaper. I took pride in it, not because it made me superior to anyone, but because it was one of the few things in life that felt reliably within my control. But that morning, tucked awkwardly into my mailbox, was a thick envelope from the HOA with the kind of stern formatting that signaled nothing good. Inside it, a formal notice declared that due to new, neighborhood-wide water conservation measures, I would be required to remove my entire lawn within 30 days. The message was couched in language meant to sound reasonable, but it carried the unmistakable bite of authority. The HOA claimed that lawns were outdated, wasteful, and incompatible with Green Willow's new environmental vision. They insisted their decision was unanimous, although nobody I spoke to afterward had heard anything about a vote. There had been no meeting, no email, not even a whisper on the community forum. The demand felt like an ambush. I spent the rest of the day trying to make sense of the situation. Other homeowners had received the same notice, but only a handful. Oddly, most of the HOA board members' houses were exempt. Their lawns appeared lush, hydrated, and, based on an early morning jog the next day, very much still being watered. The hypocrisy settled like a stone in my stomach. The neighborhood prided itself on fairness, or at least the illusion of it, but this decision struck like a knife through the center of that belief. I wasn't one to react impulsively, so I took time to think. I walked the perimeter of my yard, considering every blade of grass, every weekend spent trimming edges, every bag of fertilizer carefully measured and applied. I thought about the countless mornings spent sipping coffee on the porch while admiring the stretch of green that made my house feel like home. The idea of tearing it out felt wrong, unnecessary, and deeply personal. Still, I wanted to understand the HOA's motives, so I attended the next board meeting. The room was packed, the air buzzing with tension. While many residents questioned the sudden rule, the board's responses were vague and evasive. They leaned heavily on the phrase environmental responsibility, but their explanations lacked clarity. As I observed their expressions, I sensed something off, an agenda concealed behind smoothed-over smiles. The meeting ended with nothing resolved, leaving a room full of frustrated homeowners. Returning home that night, I found my internet running unusually slow. I brushed it off as a coincidence, a random glitch or a temporary outage. But the next morning, the problem persisted. I ran diagnostics, rebooted the router, and even checked for outages with the provider. Everything appeared normal on their end, yet my speeds were abysmal. It felt like someone else was siphoning off bandwidth. The thought seemed paranoid at first, but the more I considered it, the more it made sense. I lived next to a neighbor with a reputation for meddling. She was the type to watch people from behind blinds, the type to report the slightest deviation from HOA rules, the type to take petty matters and amplify them into neighborhood-wide squabbles. She had earned herself a nickname whispered quietly among residents: Karen. Although it wasn't her real name, her behavior fit the stereotype so perfectly that the title stuck. I couldn't prove she was stealing my Wi-Fi, not yet, but the possibility lingered in the back of my mind. While the internet issue simmered, the HOA matter escalated. Another letter arrived, this one warning of penalties for noncompliance. The deadline to remove my lawn grew closer by the day. I knew I needed to make a decision, and compliance wasn't an option I was willing to accept. The injustice of it gnawed at me, and every time I passed by a board member's pristine yard, my frustration intensified. The turning point came during an afternoon walk. I noticed a group of teenagers gathered near the park with a portable projector system, testing some kind of augmented reality display. Vibrant images danced across the grass. Moving textures, shifting patterns, almost like digital illusions come to life. The technology was mesmerizing. It sparked something in me, a spark that quickly grew into a full-fledged idea. If the HOA wanted my lawn gone, fine. I would give them something else, something they couldn't classify, something they couldn't regulate, something so far outside their rulebook that they'd choke on their own paperwork trying to understand it.my plan formed quickly. I researched high-end projection systems, new adaptive lighting networks, and the kind of holographic displays used for outdoor art installations. By the time the sun set that night, the vision of a hologram lawn had taken shape in my mind, one that would look real enough to fool anyone from a distance, but digital enough to remain untouchable by HOA regulations. But even as excitement built, the internet issue grew worse. By midweek, I could barely load an email. That's when I checked the router logs and saw activity from an unfamiliar device repeatedly connecting and disconnecting, leeching my bandwidth. The realization hit with a mix of irritation and amusement. Karen was stealing my Wi-Fi.by that point. The petty nature of it almost made me laugh. The HOA wanted to strip my lawn, and my neighbor wanted to steal my internet. It felt like both forces were converging, testing my patience, pushing me into a corner. But instead of feeling trapped, I felt oddly empowered. If they wanted to play games, I could play too, though in my own way. That night, I renamed the Wi-Fi network to Stop Stealing Karen, a small, silent message that spoke for itself. The next morning, half the neighborhood was buzzing about it in the group chat. People speculated, joked, and debated who the message was for, though most knew instantly. I didn't need to say a word. The name alone told the entire story as the HOA's lawn deadline loomed. The Wi-Fi incident only added fuel to the strange, shifting dynamics in the neighborhood. Whispers circulated. People became more observant. Lines were forming between residents and the board, between neighbors and meddlers, between rule makers and rule breakers. And I knew the real battle was about to begin. The days following the Wi-Fi incident were filled with a strange quiet, but not the peaceful kind. It was the type of quiet that settled over a neighborhood when everyone was watching everyone else, pretending not to. The group chat had erupted the night I renamed my network, and although the comments eventually tapered off, the tension lingered. Karen avoided eye contact when taking out her trash. The HOA board members remained unusually active, walking their morning routes with clipboards in hand, surveying properties as though preparing for battle. Meanwhile, I was preparing for something entirely different. Once the idea of the hologram lawn rooted itself in my mind, it became the only solution that felt both defiant and brilliant. I spent long nights researching projection mapping, outdoor holographic films, adaptive sensors, and stabilization rigs. What I found was a universe of technology typically reserved for concerts, art exhibits, and futuristic parks, not suburban front yards. But if the HOA wanted to micromanage my property using outdated rules, I intended to respond using tools far outside their reach. The system I designed evolved quickly. At its core were two high-lumen outdoor projectors mounted discreetly beneath the eaves of my home, angled to cover the entire front yard. I acquired a specialized holographic mesh, nearly invisible during the day, that sat flush against the soil. This mesh acted as both a reflective surface and a stabilizer for the projected images. Beneath the surface, I installed a thin grid of sensors that tracked movement and adjusted visuals in real time. The goal was simple: create a lawn that responded naturally to sunlight, shadows, and perspective, appearing almost indistinguishable from real grass until someone got close enough to notice the digital shimmer. The installation took several evenings. With my internet barely functional, researching and downloading the projection files took far longer than it should have. The unfamiliar device in my router logs continued to show activity, leeching bandwidth with relentless persistence. But I was too focused on the lawn project to let the irritation overwhelm me. By the fourth night, everything was in place. I tested the projectors under cover of darkness, calibrating their range and clarity until the display became seamless. When the system flickered to life for the first time, the effect was stunning. Razor-sharp blades of digital grass glowed in vibrant shades of green, each pixel mapped perfectly across the surface. The image swayed gently, mimicking the movement of a breeze. Even standing several feet away, I had to crouch and lean close to detect the faintest shimmer. From the street, it looked flawless. As dawn approached, I let the system run for the first full daylight test. The hologram adapted beautifully. Sunbeams cast natural-looking shadows across the projection, and the colors auto-adjusted to match the morning tones. The real soil beneath the mesh remained hidden, giving the illusion of a full, healthy lawn. I felt a ripple of satisfaction as I stood on the sidewalk, admiring the technological rebellion I had constructed. It was petty on one level, but it was also a creative statement, a pushback against arbitrary rules delivered through clever innovation. Word spread instantly. The first to notice was a jogger who stopped mid-stride, then circled back for a second look. The next was a dog walker who paused long enough for her dog to sniff the artificially green surface, only to pull her pet away with a confused expression. By mid-morning, small groups wandered past, whispering and pointing. Some took photos. Others recorded videos which soon found their way onto social media. A neighborhood teenager posted a short clip titled "The Future of Lawns," which gained traction almost immediately, but the attention was nothing compared to the HOA's reaction. By late afternoon, a board member marched up the driveway, clipboard in hand and frustration written across his face. He paced along the sidewalk, peered closely at the surface, then stepped back with visible irritation. He returned twice more throughout the day, each time accompanied by a different board member, as though hoping the illusion might fail under multiple sets of eyes. Their biggest problem was simple. They couldn't categorize what they were seeing. The HOA rulebook was built around regulating physical structures: grass height, fence placement, paint color, garden decorations. Nothing in their repertoire covered a digital lawn. It wasn't real grass, but it also wasn't artificial turf. It wasn't technically a structure, wasn't technically landscaping, and wasn't technically a violation. It occupied a loophole so bizarre and unexpected that they had no grounds to challenge it. The following morning, the HOA sent another letter, this one worded with far more uncertainty. They demanded clarification, details, and documentation. They asked for permission to inspect the installation, citing vague safety concerns. The tone lacked its usual authority, replaced instead with a sense of desperation. Their control was slipping, and they knew it. Meanwhile, the Wi-Fi situation escalated. After renaming the network to "Stop Stealing Karen," the mysterious device disappeared from my logs for exactly one day. Then, under a new device name, it reappeared with even more frequent activity. My internet crawled to a near standstill each evening, making it impossible to monitor the projector system's software properly. At one point, a firmware update stalled, causing the lawn projection to flicker and glitch, just as a passing group of residents stopped to look. The glitch wasn't severe, but it was enough to draw renewed scrutiny from the HOA. They seized the moment to claim the lawn setup was malfunctioning and therefore a safety hazard. Their desperation grew more transparent by the hour. Still, my primary concern was the bandwidth thief. I conducted a more thorough scan and confirmed my suspicion. The signal drop-off aligned almost perfectly with the direction of Karen's house. While I couldn't prove it outright, everything pointed to her. And the timing wasn't coincidence, it was retaliation. She had been humiliated by the Wi-Fi name change, and now, clinging to whatever petty power she could, she was striking back. The parallel battles, the HOA's campaign against my lawn and Karen's silent attack on my Wi-Fi, intertwined and fed each other. The neighborhood was watching both unfold like entertainment, whispering about the board's inability to regulate technology and laughing quietly at Karen's persistence in escalating a fight she had initiated. Despite the chaos, my resolve strengthened. The hologram lawn would stay. The pettiness from next door would be addressed. But both would require tact, patience, and a level of creativity that my opponents lacked. I was playing a long game now, and the next steps needed to be executed carefully. As the sun set on the second day of the hologram lawn's debut, a sense of calm washed over me. The projectors hummed softly, casting the perfect illusion of a lush, maintenance-free landscape. Neighbors strolled past, admiring the spectacle. The HOA fumbled behind the scenes, scrambling for solutions that didn't exist. And Karen, still stealing bandwidth from the shadows, had no idea what I was planning next. The stage was set for everything to escalate. The third week after installing the hologram lawn marked a turning point in the neighborhood's unfolding drama. The HOA's confusion had evolved into open agitation, and their desperation to reassert control grew more transparent each day. But even as their attention intensified, another battle brewed quietly at the edges of my property. A digital tug-of-war unfolding through invisible signals and stolen bandwidth. The internet issues had worsened to the point where it was affecting not just convenience, but the stability of the entire projection system. At least twice, the projectors had stuttered briefly at dusk, momentarily freezing the hologram lawn and causing it to glitch in ways that attracted unwanted attention from passers-by. Each time it happened, the HOA board seized the moment, making notes, taking photos, and whispering to one another as though the malfunction offered them a new angle of attack. Their fixation only hardened my determination. Behind the scenes, my main focus shifted toward finally catching the Wi-Fi thief. The pattern of the device connecting to my network had become textbook predictable. Every night between 6 and 11, the mysterious device leached nearly all of my available bandwidth, forcing the hologram projectors to run at their lowest backup setting. It was petty, it was persistent, and it was intentional. The timing always aligned with the evenings when Karen was home. The glow of her television flickering behind half-closed blinds, her phone lighting up her living room with bursts of pale blue. I upgraded my router and installed a more advanced monitoring system. It tracked signal strength, device identifiers, and connection patterns. The program I used didn't reveal personal information, but it provided enough clues to narrow down the source. The signal leak radiated strongest toward Karen's property line, and even though I couldn't prove it definitively, I felt the truth tightening like a knot around the situation. Meanwhile, the hologram lawn had reached viral status far beyond the neighborhood. Videos circulated online faster than I could track, and strangers began driving through Green Willow Estates, hoping for a glimpse of the digital lawn rebellion. Cars slowed down in front of my house daily. Phones held to windows as people recorded and photographed the surreal display. The attention embarrassed the HOA deeply, especially since many viewers publicly mocked the board for trying to regulate something so inventive. The more viral the videos became, the more power the HOA lost over the narrative. They no longer looked authoritative, they looked outdated, rigid, and humorless. The hologram lawn symbolized progress, creativity, and rebellion in a community that had built its identity on strict conformity. One morning, a news van even parked at the entrance of the neighborhood, reporters hoping to catch footage or an interview. The HOA president was spotted speedwalking in the opposite direction, avoiding cameras as though they carried infection. Their frustration reached a peak when they delivered a formal notice claiming the hologram lawn violated unwritten standards of neighborhood aesthetics. The phrase alone was laughable. Unwritten rules had no legal standing in the HOA charter, and their attempt to enforce them revealed how cornered they felt. But while the HOA fumbled publicly, Karen's covert sabotage continued privately. My plan to expose her came together slowly but deliberately. I disconnected my main network for one night and created a decoy Wi-Fi signal, configured to appear identical to my old one but rerouted through a monitoring system that logged connection attempts more precisely. I watched the metrics closely, noting exactly when the unknown device connected and how intensely it drew from the system. The spike occurred at the usual hour, a sudden surge pulling bandwidth in a way that confirmed without doubt that someone was deliberately exploiting the connection. The next step was subtle but effective. I created a new network name, one that didn't mention her, didn't mock her, didn't point any fingers. It simply appeared as another harmless household network. The real trap lay in changing my main network name once again to something impossible to misunderstand. This isn't your Wi-Fi. Predictably, the stolen device latched onto the decoy network instead. The data logs captured everything necessary to trace the connection source. And while I couldn't identify the person directly, the directional analysis of the signal, combined with the strength and angle, pointed with near certainty to only one property that I had what I needed. The next morning, I posted a carefully worded message in the neighborhood group chat. It didn't name anyone. It didn't accuse anyone. It simply stated that someone had been repeatedly accessing my Wi-Fi without permission, disrupting the hologram system, and contributing to recent glitches. I explained that I had taken measures to protect my network and asked politely for whoever was responsible to stop. The reaction was immediate. Residents reacted with surprise, annoyance, amusement, and curiosity. Speculation spread like wildfire. Some joked about the neighborhood's Wi-Fi bandit. Others expressed sympathy. The conversation rolled forward for nearly an hour before the first telling response appeared. Karen abruptly left the group chat without a word. Her departure was interpreted exactly as everyone expected. The whispers began almost immediately, and the reputation she had built for nosiness and quiet meddling sharpened. People noticed the timing. They put the pieces together. Without uttering a name or pointing a finger, the truth embedded itself naturally into the neighborhood's collective understanding. With the Wi-Fi issue resolved and the hologram lawn running smoothly, the HOA became the final obstacle to overcome. Their next board meeting was crowded beyond capacity, neighbors eager to witness how the saga would continue. The HOA attempted to re-establish their authority by presenting a list of proposed restrictions on digital landscaping, but they stumbled when confronted with technicalities and legal constraints. Residents questioned the timing, the reasoning, and the fairness of singling out my property after it had become a local sensation. What unfolded wasn't angry or heated. It was united. The residents stood together, demanding the HOA drop its pursuit and accept that technology had evolved. They argued that creative solutions like the hologram lawn aligned with the neighborhood's future, not its past. They highlighted the hypocrisy of enforcing vague rules while ignoring legitimate concerns from homeowners. And when the board tried to push back, they were outnumbered, outreasoned, and outmatched. By the end of the meeting, the board relented. They agreed to amend the rules in a way that allowed digital installations so long as they posed no safety risk, a definition that my system met easily. The lawn stayed, the projectors stayed, the hologram remained untouched. The victory echoed through the neighborhood, and in the days that followed, peace returned. The viral lawn shimmered with vibrant colors night after night. The internet ran better than it had in months. Karen remained distant, avoiding interactions with everyone and staying out of sight. The HOA kept a low profile, bruised but quieter and more cautious, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt calm. The battles had been ridiculous, petty, and stressful, but also strangely satisfying. By refusing to give in, I had reshaped the power dynamics of the neighborhood in a way no one expected. I hadn't just protected my lawn. I had challenged an outdated system, exposed a petty neighbor, and brought the community together in the process. The hologram lawn glowed softly against the twilight sky, a reminder that sometimes the best way to fight unreasonable rules is with creativity and a little bit of well-placed rebellion.